welcome once again to my class where learning English is easy peasy.
Hello, Liz.
Hi! Hey, what happened?
It's about Mom. She's coming.
Then you should be happy. Someone's gonna clean your messy room at last.
Oh, it's not that. She didn't tell me that she's arriving tomorrow.
Mark seems to have a problem, and it's good to know that Liz is always there whenever Mark needs her. True friends are really hard to find these days. How about you? Do you also have a friend like Liz? Great! I'm happy for you, but I'll be happier if you will like and subscribe to my channel before we start our class. In our previous discussion, we talked about the uses of would like, would prefer, and would rather. Today, we're going to talk about the different modals of advice such as could, might, should or should not, ought to, had better or had better not, have to, have got to, and must. These modals are used to give advice, suggestions, and warnings. Here's for you to understand the levels of these modals. They are arranged from the weakest, which is on top of this climb, down to the lowest. We'll talk about this further later. For the meantime, let's continue watching the video call conversation between Mark and Liz.
Hello, Liz.
Hi! Hey, what happened?
It's about Mom. She's coming.
Then you should be happy. Someone's gonna clean your messy room at last.
Oh, it's not that. She didn't tell me that she's arriving tomorrow.
Then how did you know she's coming?
My sister called me up this morning. Mom and I haven't been talking these past few weeks due to some petty things. You know. What should I do? I want to patch things up with her.
You could buy her flowers.
She is allergic to flowers.
Sorry. Well, you should ask her what she wants.
Liz, I want to surprise her.
All right. You better buy something before her arrival. Why don't you think of her favorite thing that you can give her as a surprise?
Let me think about that. Aha! She has this fixation with colorful bags.
That's good news. I sell colorful bags online. This is now the perfect time for you to check out my selections. You have to buy her one now.
What did Liz initially suggest to Mark to patch things up with his mother? Yes, that Mark could probably buy his mother some flowers. But then his mother is allergic to flowers. So what was the second suggestion or advice of Liz to Mark? Do you remember? Yes, this time she said that Mark should buy, or maybe Mark should ask his mother about what she wants to receive upon her arrival. But then Mark wants to surprise his mother. So what was the stronger advice or suggestion of Liz to Mark this time? Yeah? Alright, so she said you'd better buy her something before her arrival. But then this time, Mark realized that his mother fancies colorful bags a lot. And Liz, luckily, is an online seller of colorful bags. So, what was the final and the strongest advice of Liz to Mark? What did she say? Yes, she said, you have to buy her a new one. To make casual suggestions, especially when you have more than one choice, we use could or might. For example, if you don't like my first idea, you might try giving her perfume, or you could give her flowers. To give advice, use should or should not and ought to. For example, you should make peace with your parents. You should not disrespect your parents. You ought to make peace with your mother. We also use should or should not and ought to in general statements to express a personal point of view about something. For example, you shouldn't talk when your mouth is full. The president ought to do more for the economy in these trying times. To soften your advice or opinion, you may use I think, maybe, and perhaps. For example, maybe you should respect your wife's opinion. Another example, I think the president ought to do more for the economy in these trying times. Now, is it possible for us to give a warning and an advice at the same time? Yes, it is, by using had better or had better not, especially if you would like to emphasize the possible bad consequences or negative outcome of something. So just like or just the same way with should or should not and ought to, we may also add I think, maybe, and perhaps to soften our advice. For example, it's raining cats and dogs. Maybe you'd better stay home. Another example, you'd better not get hooked on Facebook most of the time while at work, or you'll lose your job. To give strong advice, we use have to, have got to, and must. They often suggest that something is serious or urgent. For example, you look so pale. You have to see a doctor immediately. Or you can also say, you look so pale. You have got to see a doctor immediately. Or, you look so pale. You must see a doctor immediately. There's another type of strong advice using have to, have got to, and must, which is more casual. It can express a strong opinion about something, although the situation is not really that serious. For example, you have to try that new restaurant. I ate there last weekend and the food is great. Or you can also say, you've got to try that new restaurant. I ate there last weekend and the food is great. Or you can also use must. You must try that new restaurant. I ate there last weekend and the food is great. How about this? Would you like to give it a try? All right, repeat after me. He has to call his mother. Your turn. Very good. He has got to call his mother. How about you? Well done. You have to remember also that unlike other phrasal modals, have to and have got to have different forms for the third person singular. Like all modals, could, might, should, and must are all followed by the base form of the verb and have the same form for all subjects. To form affirmative statements, we begin with the subject, then the modal or phrasal modal and the base form of a verb. For example, you could surprise her. You might surprise her. You should surprise her. And you must surprise her. You can also use she or they, followed by any of these modals and the base form of a verb. Now, let's use a phrasal modal. So we have the phrasal modals such as ought to and had better this time. For example, I ought to call her, or I'd better call her. We also have she ought to call her, or she had better call her. And then you can also use another subject, which is they, and followed by ought to or had better, and the base form of a verb. Now for the other phrasal modals such as has to, have to, and then we also have has got to and have got to, we have these examples. I have to call her, or I have got to call her. We also have he has to call her, or he has got to call her. And then we have they have to call her, and then they've got to call her. So you can just choose one from these modals depending on how you would like to express your suggestion or advice. In spoken English, we normally contract the subject and the phrasal modals such as has got to, have got to, had better, and had better not. On the other hand, Has to and have to do not have any contracted form. I'd like to emphasize also that had better looks like a past form, but it is not. It is commonly used to talk about the present and the future. Now repeat after me. I have got to, I've got to. He has got to, he's got to. They have got to, they've got to. You had better, you'd better. They had better, they'd better. Good job! For negative statements, we follow the same pattern but we add not to each of these modals and phrasal modals. Do not use couldn't in negative statements of advice. For example, you should not surprise her. He must not surprise her. They must not surprise her. For do or does plus not, I do not have to call her. She does not have to call her. They do not have to call her. In speaking, we usually contract the subject and these modals or phrasal modals. So, should not becomes shouldn't, do not becomes don't, and does not becomes doesn't. We add not to had better as a phrasal modal in the negative statements, and it begins with the subject, followed by had better not and base form of a verb. For example, I had better not call her, or she had better not call her. They had better not call her. We also contract the subject and the phrasal modals just the same way how modals are contracted with the subject. I had better not becomes I'd better not. She had better not becomes she'd better not. They had better not becomes they'd better not. For yes-no questions using should, we begin with should, the subject, and the base form of the verb. On the other hand, for yes-no questions using do or does, we begin with do or does, followed by the subject, the phrasal modal have to, and the base form of the verb. For example, should I buy her flowers? Do I have to buy her flowers? Does he have to buy her flowers? Do they have to buy her flowers? Remember that the use of do or does depends on the subject that we use in yes-no questions. To give short answers, we just start with either yes or no, followed by the subject and should or shouldn't, do or don't, does or doesn't. To form information questions using should, we begin with WH word, followed by should, subject, and verb. For example, what should I buy to surprise my mother? To form information questions using do or does, we begin with WH word, followed by do or does, subject, phrasal modal, and base form of a verb. For example, who do I have to pay? What do I have to pay? When does he have to pay? Why does he have to pay? Keep in mind that we do not usually use have got to or ought to in negative statements or even in questions. Had better is also not usually used in questions. Before I end this lesson, I'd like to thank one of my guests today, the host of Friday Talks with Carla and Liz, Miss Lizelle Lopez, aka Miss Leslie Lopez when she was in college. And here she is, she has something to tell us, guys.
Hey Kafrika, short for Friday Kachika. I am Liz.
And I am Carla.
And we would like to invite you to our online talk show entitled Friday Talks with Liz
And Carla. And we're gonna talk about anything about life. And you can also participate in our live streaming.
So come on, join us. It'll be fun. Catch us every Friday, 7:30 p.m. only here on Facebook Live.
Don't forget to like our Facebook page that you can see on your screen.
Yes, again, see you every Friday, 7:30 p.m. on Friday Talks with Liz
And Carla.
See you, Kafrika.
See you, Kafrika.
I'd also like to thank Mr. Mark Deben, our friendly property consultant, for sharing his acting skill with us in today's episode. Here he is, guys.
Hi there! It is indeed an honor to be part of Miss O's learning English is easy peasy. I am Mark Dipon, a former student of our gorgeous Miss O. I'm a PRC accredited and registered HLURP salesperson of all the MCI Homes projects. Regarding real estate, did you know that real estate is the most appreciated investment? Did you know that Philippines is ranked 6 in the world which are relatively safe to invest in? Did you know that property investment here in the Philippines is the most stable form of investments despite any crisis? To know the status of Philippine real estate and learn more about real estate investing, then I am the best person to contact with. Here are my contact details.
That's all from Miss O's English class today. If you like this video, please click like, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell button to get notified for the next video. Thank you and stay safe.